There is currently a war going on between Mercy haters and Mercy simps, and it's been boiling up uncontrollably. There have been calls for Mercy nerfs like never before, and an equal response of defending Mercy. So we're gonna break it all down, both sides of the argument, and really find out, does Mercy deserve a nerf? But make sure you smash that subscribe button because we're so close to 50,000 subscribers. I would really appreciate it, and let's jump right in. Now, the meta has been changing quite a bit, with Hog being very powerful, Orisa and Ana buffs mixing up the meta, Kiriko still being very strong, and Sojourn one-tapping left and right, although once Sojourn's one-tap got removed, it really didn't, because Mercy could now all of a sudden pocket a Sojourn and make the Sojourn even more powerful in their base form, and they could still one-tap with their railgun with that damage boost. Now, this really created the start of the problem, where Mercy started to become one of the most picked, if not the most picked support, because pocketing and enabling a one-shot machine that could do it from range and provide a ton of damage, it started to become apparent just how powerful this was. And now we're in a situation where Mercy might be in a stronger state than she's been in a while. At least her place in the meta is stronger. Now, this is a really important distinction, but we'll revisit that in a little bit. Now, there's creators all over the place basically talking about the Mercy problem, or the Mercy not problem, basically. First off, let's talk about SK saying this on Twitter. You could sit here and say Mercy isn't a problem all day, but does anyone have fun playing against Pharah Mercy? What about Mercy Echo, Mercy Widow, Mercy Sojourn? What about when she resurrects an effective 1000 HP tank after your team committed all your abilities to killing them? Now, this is SK specifically talking about the need for abilities like damage boost and resurrect to be changed into something different. However, notable that they said that the mobility of Mercy should stay the same. It's just some abilities part of Mercy's kit should change. Then we have community member ML7 saying this on Twitter. Curious how whenever a tank or DPS is broken, it's always the support's fault. Basically calling out all the pitchforks that's being raised towards Mercy when this is a Hog, Orisa, and Sojourn's problem, and Mercy has existed in metas in the past and has been perfectly fine, or at least serviceable. Specifically, compositions that actually host dive, for instance. Dive is a very effective strategy at countering not only pocketed DPS, but Mercy in particular, and Blizzard seemingly always nerfs characters like Genji and other dive characters, so perhaps it's not Mercy herself, but the meta that she's existing in. We have other creators like Hoshi saying, as much as people don't admit it, Mercy is hated whenever she's good because she's considered skillless. I haven't seen this kind of negativity towards Lucio, Ana, Bap when they had dominant metas, as they were just as oppressive. Now, this is specifically talking to the fact that Mercy gets overhated whenever she's good, when a lot of other characters can be very strong and not overhated to that extent. Now, is it because Mercy is seen as skillless, or perhaps there's a certain amount of frustration involved in just getting one-tapped and your kills getting overridden by a simple ability? It could be a combination of both, and just because damage boost exists doesn't mean that we have to allow it to enable one-taps. Very similar to how Ashe cannot one-shot headshot with damage boost anymore like she used to be able to, but Sojourn still can. So, is it really a Mercy problem, or is it a Sojourn problem? Now we have creators like Samita responding to that hot take saying, I don't think it's because Mercy is considered skillless, though that word is incorrectly used at times. The reality is that Mercy's skill set is just far easier than other heroes, which is why she has that reputation. Lucio, Ana, Bap are all more demanding heroes than Mercy. Of course, this is bringing an entirely different take, basically saying that players are more angry at Mercy getting all this value for what is seen to be at least more mechanically demanding. Samito has spoken a lot about this previously, stating that he wants all the best characters in the game to be the ones that require the most mechanical skill, and that non-mechanical skill characters shouldn't be rewarded heavily for just existing in the game, referencing Brig and the fact that you could just exist on Brig and get a lot of value. Now, while some parts of this argument I agree with, there is something that you should consider. One, Sojourn is definitely a character that requires a lot of mechanical skill to hit consistent railgun headshots. Doesn't mean that that should persist or exist in the game. Now, that's not his direct argument, but it is something to point out. And two, I think specifically Mercy's new movement actually does a great job at allowing a lot more skill expression in really, really great Mercies. And I think that if you do end up changing anything about Mercy, changing her movement in particular is the last thing that you should change, because the new movement changes actually provide a ton of skill depth and differences in ranked. But that's just my personal opinion. I'm curious about how you feel about it down below. Now, this isn't my take alone. Notable Mercy streamer Skiesti said this on Twitter. Just to clarify, I don't care if damage boost or res gets replaced, reworked, as long as Mercy is still playable. I'd love an ability I use more than 4 times in 10 minutes. Most Mercies only care that her movement stays the same. So basically, we're not necessarily seeing a war on Mercy, per se. We're seeing a war specifically on damage boost and resurrect. But there are a couple of problems. First off, you have to ask, is it actually Mercy's fault that we're in this situation? Are there ways to change the meta or things around the meta, or maybe after Roadhog one tap gets changed and maybe dive gets re-enabled or some meta shift happens, Mercy might not be anywhere near as dominant as she is right now, and most notably, not being able to one tap anymore on Sojourn is something that should probably happen. 2, if we acknowledge, hey, okay, Mercy should still get nerfed regardless of those things, then specifically, what are you going to be replacing damage boost and resurrect with? On one hand, I don't really think it's necessarily that fair that Mercy gets nerfed, and maybe if we change up the meta, Mercy will not need to get nerfed. Like, there's a lot of people talking about Junkrat needing to get nerfed, but I personally believe that he's only a product of the meta we're in, and when Hog loses his one tap, and maybe Orisa gets nerfed or Sojourn gets changed, everything could change, and you no longer need to nerf these characters that we're talking about. Now, on the topic of fair, though, a lot of characters get enabled by other characters, and things can change, especially moving to 5v5, like Hog becoming an absolute menace once Kiriko was created. Not directly a Hog's fault, but that doesn't mean it's not the new reality we're in, which might be true with Mercy and Resurrect and Damage Boost, because it seems that damage amplification in general just keeps creating problems, and Resurrect, especially with a very powerful tank, is a very powerful ability. So what is the actual way around this? What is the solution? How do we untangle this mess of arguments and get to something that is favorable for the majority of people and people actually enjoy? I would say we start off first with the easy ones. Hog, Orisa, and Sojourn. And then C, post an Orisa, Hog, and Sojourn world, or at least Orisa slightly nerfed, Hog losing his one-shot, and Sojourn not being able to one-shot even with damage boost, we see what happens to Mercy. We don't jump the gun. We don't over-nerf a million different things. We nerf the biggest cores of the meta that is unfavorable, and then we wait and see. And if we keep ending up in situations where Resurrect and Damage Boost are too oppressive, perhaps we rework those abilities into things that are favorable or fun to use, while still maintaining the advanced movement that Mercy currently has, perhaps even abilities that Mercy could combine with her advanced movement to have even more impact in the right hands, adding to the further increase in skill ceiling, but still allowing Mercy to have a relatively low skill floor as a nice entry-level character for a lot of players to start off with, but still grow with and improve with. And also, it's important to understand that at a certain point, if damage alteration keeps becoming an issue, then other forms of damage alteration probably need to get looked at. But maybe just for a bit, we could put our pitchforks down and not aim them directly at the Mercy community, when most of us are completely looking past, like, a lot of the characters that are truly causing many of the frustrations in ranked right now. But we're definitely gonna have to wait and see how the meta looks in a post-Hog world. Definitely let me know how you feel about Mercy and how you feel about just every single character in the meta in general. Please smash the like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content, and I'll talk to you later.